You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to the show today. Got a good one for you. This is a very spicy one. Well, it's not that spicy. It's good though, and you're gonna probably become entranced with Devon's voice, because I remember just recording this podcast and being like, "Whoa, could you just keep talking to me all day long and never stop?" That's how I felt this whole time. It was a really fun episode, though. He has a really cool story. If you have not seen his demos, please slide over to the YouTubes. Type in Devon Bluehand or Devon Blue Whitaker, I think. I'll find the link. I'll stick it in the show notes. But either way, you've got to see his demos. They transcend demos, in my opinion. They are singular art pieces all by themselves. They're so cool. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. And he was so fun to talk to. And, I should stop rambling and let you guys get to the episode. But before I do that, I just want to remind you about an easy way to support the show with your already compulsive gear buying habits like you have. I know you do. If you're listening to this show, if you're anything like me, you have those compulsive gear buying habits, and you might as well put them to use. So if you're going to be doing any shopping on reverb.com, don't forget to use the tonemob.com/reverb link. That's tonemob.com/reverb. And anything you do, whether it's just signing up for a new account, whether it's, say, hey, you haven't heard of Reverb somehow? By now? I don't know how that would be possible, but I guess it's possible. I get people signing up through the link on the regular, so I guess it does happen. But if you don't even want to buy anything, if you just want to set up a new account for the future, that helps the show too. They really appreciate that. So they kick a few bucks my way for every new sign up. So go ahead and take advantage of that if you have not already. And for those that have, thank you very much. It's a very easy way to keep wind in the sails of this weird pirate ship. So anyway, I'll stop talking and I'll let you talk to, or listen to rather, Mr. Devon Whitaker. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Devon Blue, one of my favorite demo people in the world. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty splendid. I'm getting ready to do a little video myself, but it's going to be a lot easier than what you usually do. Just a quick and dirty thing for the gram. So, it's all in good fun. How about yourself? What are you up to today, other than podcasting with some moron?
Editing as we speak. Editing another demo, and then I got to move on to the next one. And it seems like it's kind of a never-ending thing. Thankfully. But
right,
yeah, that's what I got cooking right at present.
Nice. So I have so many questions for you, because you seemingly just kind of, at least as far as my perception of it is, just kind of came out of nowhere and started making these insanely visually driven. I even hesitate to call them demos sometimes. They're really art pieces in and of themselves. I mean, I feel like, Knobs was one of the first guys to kind of take that approach, and then you've taken it, and not that your formats are the same at all, but he was one of the first guys to kind of make what I would consider art pieces as demos too. And you've kind of taken it to a whole different level. So you mind telling your backstory and how you got to be doing that?
Wow. Yeah, it's actually a crazy one. It's really weird. I mean, for the bulk of my music career, I've always been a session guitarist, and I wanted to kind of break away from doing that and started. I wanted to do my own music, and I knew locally there wasn't really anyone that was kind of vibing with the type of music that I was into. So I thought I would go on to Instagram and start, making videos and putting my own music out there. Um, and on a whim, just for the sake of just doing something, I put on a pair of blue gloves and I did some sort of OP1 kind of just video for the gram. Anyways, it started doing well, and then I'll never forget it. Tom from Cooper Effects, the very first person to who was a pedal builder that was like into what I was doing. He hit me up and he said, I will send you a gin loss if you give me 30 seconds of some video. And no one had ever asked me to do video or to do anything, so it was shocking to say the least. And I thought, oh, this guy's going to send me a pedal, so I should really make this video something. And sure enough, I went into it. I mean, I made the best possible thing I could make for the time. It had stop motion. It had a bunch of things for it. And the video did pretty well. And after that, a bunch of other people started reaching out to me, and then more, and then more, and then more. And I've arrived at this echelon to where every time I go to my front door, there's a box of pedals. So it's
Ooh.
yeah. So it's kind of cool. It's cool, but it's weird how life kind of takes you places. Because never in a million years would I thought of that I would be a videographer. It was just it was a means to an end. Yeah. No, I've never. In fact, and I'm slightly embarrassed to admit this. In fact, this will be the first place that I've actually admitted this to. But up until recently, all my videos were done on an iPhone. Even the stop motion stuff. I recently just got a cinema camera, probably about 2-3 months ago. So everything for the longest time was shot on an iPhone until now, and everything. And ultimately, you can kind of tell the quality in video, but yeah. So
That's amazing. And also,
Mhm.
I was going to say, it makes me feel dumb because I am in the same boat. Almost every video that I've done, with the exception of a couple YouTube demos that are pretty obviously not done on an iPhone, I'm the same way, but mine do not look like yours. So I will say, even if that's not your background, you certainly have a talent for it. Like you've figured something out. And I've had a lot of people say things like, "Oh, I just do it with my phone." But the reality is, especially the new iPhones and stuff, I mean, they're pretty powerful, and they're much more powerful than the high quality cinema cameras from even like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So, I mean, I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of.
No. It's definitely nothing to dismiss so easily. I mean, for the longest time I was just using my my iPhone, and I mean, it does 4K fine. The ultimate separation between, like, in terms of quality is knowing lighting and not using your phone for audio. So, still miking
Right.
up your amps, still doing all of that, still going into a nice audio interface, just solely using your phone or iPad, whatever it is you use, just to collect video. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, that is definitely key. That is also my method. So the first thing was the gen loss, and then what do you remember what the next was? I mean, there's just been so many. I know you've done videos for lots of my friends at this point. Has there been any particular pedal that pulled something out of you weren't expecting?
Oh yeah. So the first official demo that I did was by Trollo, and it was the Stamen, and that was the first official demo. Everything else was kind of just small little things for the gram. That one really kind of taught me about pacing. And then the second video directly after that was the Atmosphere by Dr. Scientist. I would say that those two pedals, oh man, and that's such a great pedal. Like, those two pedals actually pretty much kind of formulated how I would do videos. And it's such a weird thing because for the, what was it? So I don't think I did any talking during the Drolo one, but I did do some dialogue toward the latter end of the Atmosphere demo. And I got a bunch of comments from people and messages saying that they liked my voice and I should talk more. And I was like, that's so weird. Because I've always thought that I just sound sleepy and nasally and just boring. But no, that became a thing. In fact, some of the pedal guys who would send me pedals, they would request that I say something or I speak in it. And so I was like, okay. So yeah, those two pedals were the ones that kind of more or less helped me figure out what I was going to be doing. And one other pedal. It wasn't a demo though. It was something that I did for Instagram. I did the Dark Aura by Haunted Labs. It's this crazy reverb pedal. So I did that for the gram, and I made it super cinematic. So I think it was just those three things that kind of more or less helped me figure out how to approach things.
That's very interesting. Yes, and your voice is very much part of the show, so to speak. And that's not going to lie. That's part of the reason I wanted to get you on here, so I could just expose that to this audience. I feel like you should be narrating books or something. It's so funny because I hate my voice too. I have to edit these, and it's like, and I know it's not as bad as what it is in my head. I've had to do a little research on this because I've found that 99% of people, when they hear their recorded voice back to them, they hate it. And I didn't know why that was, because that seems weird, right? But it turns out it's because we don't hear ourselves the same way that everyone else does. And so when it comes back, it's like, oh, that's what people hear? To me, I sound like I have a deeper voice than I do. And so when I hear myself back, it's like, wow, what am I, Pee Wee Herman? What's going on here? This is this is strange, but I guess it's tolerable enough. But no, I think your voice is part of what is compelling about some of those things in a strange way, just even though it might not be that way for you.
Right. And you definitely have a radio disc jockey voice, very you turn on the radio, you forgot a radio voice. I
hope it's not too radio. I did a little thing on the last podcast where I pretended to be Joe Branton from the Guitar Nerds for just a brief second on the intro, and it didn't sound like him. It just sounded like an American doing a British accent, but I had that weird vocal fry thing going on where it's like, hey, and it's like, oh, don't do that ever again. It's not a good sound. So hopefully it's not too bad that way. I've tried to cut back on my cigarettes these days, and maybe that'll help. I don't know. I don't smoke. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so you've been a session musician for a really long time. When did you first pick up the guitar?
Actually, you know what? I can't really say a really long time. I've actually only been playing about I've only been playing about 30, 13 years. So, I was in college and going to school for my degree in psychology, and I stumbled into a guitar class just on a whim, because I needed the course, or some sort of visual arts performance thing in order to transfer over to a bigger university. And the only class that would take me late in the semester was a guitar class. And the teacher, Mr. Phillips, told me, bring a guitar and come on in, and I'll get you in the class. So I said, okay. Picked up some, nylon string guitar from a pawn shop. And that very next day, he walked around the room. It was a room full of 22 students. He made sure everybody's guitar was tuned, and he says, all right, we're going to play our first chord together. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and everyone strummed. So he counted down 3, 2, 1, and everybody strummed at the same time. And it was E minor. I'll never forget it. And hearing an E minor in a small room like that, strummed by 22 students, it was just, there was this resonance there. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what it was that I wanted to do. So I spent every waking day, hour, minute, second, trying to master the guitar. And I ended up getting lucky. Someone I know was a producer for R&B, hip hop, and stuff like that. And they asked me to play guitar for them, and I ended up playing guitar for Nicki Minaj. I ended up playing guitar for just, a lot of people.
Wow.
It's a crazy thing, but it's super niche. The only problem with playing ambient guitar is that in most instances, it doesn't sound like guitar. So you don't really get credit for it, The producer gets credit for it. It sounds like some sort of synth or some sort of something. But yeah.
That's interesting. That's fascinating. 13 years is a while, though. That's a while to have been playing.
Yeah.
So it's you've been doing it a long time. That's interesting. So did you? Yeah, you know your way around the fretboard. Good, because I don't. I just kind of hit it and hope it's right. Cover it up with fuzz. It'll be okay. I'll figure it out eventually. So that's interesting because, most of the people I talk to, have worked in rock, usually in some capacity, where obviously it's very apparent the guitar is there. It's almost amazing how much guitar is in hip hop and R&B and things that it isn't entirely obvious. From the artist perspective, do you find that Nicki Minaj or whoever you were working with at the time, is that something they would request? Oh, we need some guitar in here. Or was that more of the producers that would steer that ship?
It was always the producer. And I never actually got a chance, unfortunately, to meet Nicki Minaj, nor did I know at the time that the song I was working on was gonna go to her. The way that it works in a lot of those Los Angeles sessions, I'm in Sacramento, California, so I'm a stone's throw away from Los Angeles, but the way it actually works is, they'll hire you for a day or a few days, and you just play guitar for the entirety of that day. Sometimes it's they have a track in mind, and sometimes they would ask me to just play whatever. And at the end of one of those sessions, some weeks or months later, I had been contacted by the producer, and they were like, hey, we need your ASCAP and BMI information. We just sold this song to Nicki Minaj. And that was really cool. So it's yeah. So to answer your question, it's usually the producer. Um, it's usually the producer. The producer is always the guy who gets me in the door with artists or bands. Bands are a lot different than like R&B and hip hop guys. I do get hired quite a bit to play guitar for bands and go on tour with them, but it's completely different. It's so interesting how night and day it is. But yeah.
What are some of the big differences?
Well, like
Other than you just got pointed at, you described with part of the R&B process, but like, what are some major things?
well, the musicality of it is far different for like R&B and hip hop based things. It's interesting because like the simplest thing goes a long way in R&B and hip hop. A guitar swell or a drone or a simple riff. Those things, they can make the entirety of a song around 2 bars of something, 4 bars of something. Whereas in rock and roll, or any kind of indie music, like the music has to ebb and flow a lot differently. It has to build up and build down, and the chord progression changes here, and then we're going to go from the major to the minor, and it's a little bit more involved for that instance of it. But it's I tend to prefer that a little bit more than the latter. So yeah.
What kind of music do you listen to mostly?
Oh man, I listen to everything. Everybody says that.
I know the
Everyone
feeling.
says that. I listen to everything from Radiohead to Drake. I mean, I love it all. I love it all, and I even love some weird, kind of obscure things. Music from I love music from the 70s. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. I wish that I was born and lived in that time because I feel like that's where I belong. But
It was a magical time, I think.
It really was. It was. I mean, it's just, it was one of those times where it was like, you could be an artist and it was accepted in a way, and most of those people weren't thinking in terms of like, I'm going to do this to be rich. We're going to do this to be rich. It was just, we're doing this to create. We're doing this for the love of creating something. So it was, man, it was an interesting time,
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the most inspirational stuff ever came out of that time period. And,
Right.
I think a lot of that has to do with, the things that were going on in the world at the time. It was a really dynamic era. There was a lot going on music wise and just in general, and in a lot of ways, I think we're in a similarly interesting time, with whatever's going on in the world. It's changing so fast right now, and everyone's is struggling to keep up. And I honestly believe that, with technology and things back then, I think they were experiencing a similar phenomenon, mainly with technology and people's access to it. And I think we're seeing a similar revolution right now. And I wonder if maybe we're living in a golden era of sorts for music as well, because it's never been more accessible for more creators to create and put things out there than it has before. I was just talking yesterday on a podcast with Matt from Mule Resonator Guitars about how there's quite possibly like a Bob Dylan somewhere that no one's ever heard. He's just got a bunch of basement tapes or a bunch of basement recordings. And right now it seems more possible that that's happening than maybe ever before, just because of people's access to it.
Right. And I mean, it's more likely that there are thousands of Bob Dylans out there than there is one.
That's true.
There is an oversaturation of musicians and artists in general nowadays. So it wouldn't be too outlandish to believe that, there's another Bob Dylan or, Hendrix out there, amongst us, relative to the times, obviously. But,
right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, right now, our generation, in terms of musicality, we have access to like such a great breadth of different types of content, that our predecessors didn't have. It used to be like, you'd want to hear a song or really figure out how a song works, and like they put on some vinyl and listen to it and take it back. And nowadays it's like you want to learn something, you just type it into a search engine and someone else has already figured out the tab for you. There's also music instructions, there's a tutorial, there's a demo, there's a downloadable PDF. There's it's it's like everyone has the capacity to arrive at that echelon to where they themselves can be a savant, So it's interesting. Yeah.
Do you think that kind of like, I don't know what the word would be exactly, allows for a little bit of mediocrity to shine through, whereas back in the day, it was kind of really only those that really wanted it and really put in the work. What do you think about that?
Well, to that, I would say mediocrity has always existed, even back in those times. But the difference, the greatest deviance being that mediocrity doesn't last long. When you look back at the Zeppelins and things like that, you have to consider that there was hundreds of other bands playing too, who remain nameless. It's just we don't know who they are because, again, time pretty much destroys mediocrity or lays claim to it in a way. So, a lot of things that are happening now in the world, musically and otherwise, things that we think are unique to this time really aren't. Just recently, I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a writer, excuse me, and I was telling him, I was like, man, it's technology, the advancement in technology now it's increasing at a rate in which it's never increased before. He said, no, that's not true. He says, he's told me that I was making the mistake of like living within this bubble. And he says his grandfather, and this gentleman is older than I, he told me his grandfather, when his grandfather first came to California, they came to California in wagons. It was a long time ago. They came to California in wagons. And they farmed their land.
Wow.
Then the car was created. Then the airplane. And then before he passed away, he was able to see the first man land on the moon. So he says, really, when you think about it, like the total amount of advancement that happened within, his grandfather's time exceeds anything that we've seen at present, or at the very least, it mirrors it in a way. But yeah, so it's yeah.
That is interesting. That is an interesting perspective, because I think it's generally accepted knowledge by most people that technology is indeed increasing at an exponential rate, but perhaps that is twisted a bit. It's just, maybe the rate is essentially the same. It's just we're coming from a different starting place. You and I, by the time we were born, we were already flying. We'd already been to the moon. We already had satellites up in space. So it's kind of like saying that like the guy who invented the wheel is not as intelligent as the guy who invented, space travel. Or guy, you know what I mean? The people that invented either of those things, which isn't really true. They both had to be innovative in a way that humankind had never seen before. So
exactly.
That's an interesting perspective. That is that does hold water. That makes some sense to me.
Yeah, it's a real interesting paradox, you know, like, and you said it right, that like that was a really great that was a real great way of saying it, you know, the difference between the person who created the wheel and then the person who, you know, created the first spaceship. And I mean, we look at things right now in terms of like, oh, this new app that came out that does this and that for me. Man, technology has never been better. But then you think about the Wright brothers, and you think about Armstrong. You think about all of those things, and then you compare that to what's happening now, and it's like, it really kind of just makes you. It kind of humbles you in a way. It makes you realize that, you know, what's happening now has happened on a much larger scale before. So, yeah, that's interesting.
It is interesting. It's also interesting that you and I have wrapped our lives up in what is essentially, you know, old technology. I mean, the pedals and the effects and things are kind of outliers from that, but an electric guitar is not exactly what most scientists would call an advanced piece of technology, but yet it's a special piece of technology somehow. If I'm making any sense, it's almost like sometimes you don't need to advance too much further for it to be impactful, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. No, and it's, some things stay the same. And I mean, ultimately some things will inevitably always be a means to an end, you know, like, so it's cell phones won't go away anytime soon, you know.
Right.
So it's kind of like that, you know, and pedals and guitar pedals, and even though we've got like the technology to have, you know, have it all on our phone, there's just something a little bit more viable about having it under your foot, something you can step on.
That's it. Yeah, it's visceral in a weird way. I've started to view, you know, the crazy electric rigs that I set up as almost a little bit of a different thing than a standard electric guitar. You know, I'm starting to view them a little bit more like their own instrument. When you combine them in certain ways, you're creating these new sounds that have honestly never been done before, you know, just with the effects that you and I have in our collection. Like, we have unlimited possibilities with what the sounds that we can make with these things and they've never existed before, sonically. And that's exciting to me. I think it's interesting. But we've talked about the effects and things quite a bit, because that's obviously a big focus of both of ours. But what about the rest of your rig? What's your guitar collection and your go-tos look like?
Oh, wow. So I've kind of scaled it down quite a bit recently, but I mean, I go as far back as a 63 Silvertone Silhouette, all the way to I know, and it's with the gold foil pickups. Those pickups are pretty much just glorified microphones, because I mean, you can talk into them and it'll pick it up clearer than anything else that I own. And I love that. I love that guitar. I don't use it as much. I've got a weird, I want to say it's some sort of, it looks like a Telecaster, but it's got, it's lightning blue with white racing stripes, and it's all one wood, so it doesn't have a bolted on neck. And yeah, it's a weird guitar. It came out like right when I first started playing guitar. In fact, it was like the second guitar that I bought, and I've had it since then. But it was a special edition Fender guitar, I do know that, and they never made any more beyond that, so I still have it. I've got a few of the Supros, a few of the older Supros that I enjoy. Again, I don't really play them; they kind of just hang on the wall. I've got a custom shop Telecaster, um, hangs on the wall. My two go-to guitars. For one, the one guitar that I've done all my session work with was a 60th anniversary Strat Fender Highway,
Oh yeah.
USA.
Hmm.
Yeah, blonde. That's been like my go-to for years. But recently, I just got a reverberation sent to me from Pure Salem Guitars, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, that thing it's pretty killer. I've been using it for I think maybe my last four demos. It's been the guitar that I use for those, and probably will be my demo guitar going forward, unless something else drops into my lap. But yeah, no, that's going to be my demo guitar for the foreseeable future. But for my own music, probably the Strat. Yeah.
Hmm. It's a classic for a reason. I still have yet to find a Strat that I just fell head over heels in love with yet. But admittedly, like Strats for me, for whatever reason, and I'm not really. This doesn't make any sense because I'm a big Les Paul guy. But like in my head, when I picture guitar, I picture a Stratocaster, and I'm that weird person that's like, well, I got to go against that a little bit. I got to have something strange. But like I said, that's kind of dumb because I play Les Pauls a lot and I really like Les Pauls. And that's just as ubiquitous. So I don't really know where that thought process entered my head or why it's there. But nothing else sounds like a Strat, man. I think everybody needs one in their stash at some point if they can,
Oh yeah,
myself included.
yeah. They have to have one. In
What about amplifiers? What does the rest of your chain look like?
Um, so I've got a 68 Fender Twin, not the black face, just the silver face. And I love that thing. For the longest time, that was actually my session amp. And it
Oh,
was
wow.
so, yeah, I know. It was so heavy. That thing is like 80 pounds. But I would
Yeah,
drag it
it's a
around with
beast.
me everywhere. I put wheels on it. I would wheel it around. And finally, I just got like, man, I just need something a little smaller. So I got the Fender Supersonic, and I had a
Mhm.
friend go through it for me, and we changed a lot of he just kind of went through and changed a lot of stuff in there for me, and we modded it. It's got a plexiglass back on it, a thick plexiglass back, and it does make a difference in terms of the sound. It's like the sound goes out of the back and then smacks forward. Um, and a custom reverb tank in that one, and that
Oh,
thing
wow.
sounds amazing. Yeah, I love that. I also have a Koch. I think that's Koch. Ko.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not familiar
Koch.
with that.
Well, it's this little boutique amp company that makes amps out of the Netherlands. So it.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, man! Like the wood on that is like about I would say like 2 inches, like almost 2 inches thick. It's pretty thick wood in the cab, and it has a little matching cab with it. So it's a combo amp with a little matching cab for it. Um, then I've got a custom shop Fender Blues Junior, where again, I let a friend kind of go through it and change some stuff and changes out the reverb tank and all of that. And then the last amp, and it's the amp that I've probably been using on my most recent demos. It's this amp by this local builder called Modern Vintage. He built this amp for me out of an old radio from like the 60s or late 60s, early 70s kind of thing. So That's what I'm rolling with these days. I do want to go back to talking about the guitars because you and I have a similar friend, and that's in Paul Rooney.
Oh, yes.
He lived here in
Yes.
Sacramento, and he and I jammed several times. He plays drums, interestingly enough. So I would go up to his little shop where he would build his guitars, and I'd get to see all of the guitars he was working on, and I get to try them out, and then we would jam, and it really broke my heart when he stopped making guitars because the Oceana is that's the only guitar that
yes.
I would stop playing a Fender for. Like that guitar, it's perfect. It looks perfect. It sounds perfect, and it's something to watch him kind of just sanding it down and putting it together. And it's like, man, I'll never be able to own one. I kind of pick at him every so often. I'm like, hey, are you gonna get back into it? Are you gonna, But I mean, who knows?
I think everyone does. I think everyone's pestering him. We actually did a podcast a few weeks ago. Paul and I did. Well, maybe a couple months ago at this point. I'd have to look at the dates, but he actually really went into that, and it was for Patreon originally. But I'm probably going to. The Patreon folks have already gotten a chance to listen to that, and I'll probably put it out here in a couple months because there are so many people that ask me because I'm very, very count my lucky stars to fortunate that I own an Oceana Imperial, and it's one of my very favorite, most treasured guitars. I love it's the one I play the most by a pretty wide margin. I play all of my guitars pretty frequently, but that one is the one I gravitate towards, and I love it so much. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to get one from Paul before he paused. I think I would consider it a pause because I think he's not that old. You know what I mean? And I could definitely see him getting back into it on some level at some point. I just don't know when that will be because he's pretty happy right now doing what he's doing. But that is crazy. I didn't know you guys had played together. That's so cool. Mm-hmm. This is an interesting small world type of experience. That's crazy.
Right.
I wonder if what time period was that in? I wonder if he was working on my guitar while you guys were doing that.
Might have been actually, because I do remember a blue one that he had finished and was sending out. So it was a few years ago. I would say some years ago. Yeah, I don't remember the date.
I know. It's not the only blue one in existence, but it is the only blue one with a gold mastery tremolo and bridge on it, because at the time Mastery was not doing gold, and Paul actually went and had those actually just plated for me because I so badly wanted the gold hardware to go with that blue.
Right. And then I think he ordered a few more after that or something like that, and he was gonna put him on another guitar. It was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I was around that time, because not too much longer, that's when he left Sacramento altogether. I would say 6 months to a year from then he left Sacramento. So around then. So it's very possible that I played your guitar before you did.
You probably did. That's why it's so magic. You put the sauce on it. You put the spices in there. Made it magic. It's there was actually lots of people that played it before I did, which is kind of funny. They're all friends, so it's fine. But there was I think it was at Cowerfest, like the last Cowerfest that Paul would have been at. For those that don't know, Doug Cower of Cower Guitars has a Cowerfest, not every year, but he's done it several years. And yes, I got a picture of somebody sent me a picture of Steve from 60 Cycle Hum playing my guitar before I got to, and I know a bunch of other people sweated all over it too. So I don't know. I don't care. There were it showed up and it was perfect. So what do I care if somebody played it first?
Right. Yeah, that was actually that Carapace was the last one that Paul was at before he left, and his band that he was in at the time, I believe they actually played that. I think I'm not sure. He was in a band with another friend of mine. In fact, that's how I ended up meeting Paul. Is we had a mutual friend, and he's like, "Man, you got to come by and jam," and that's how that all happened. But yeah, I believe his band played that. I'm not sure though. I don't remember. But yeah.
That was just like I hadn't been involved. I think I maybe had like maybe 30 or 40 podcasts out at that point. So I hadn't even really been involved in the quote unquote gear world for that long at that point. And it's weird to me that because that doesn't feel like that long ago, like mentally, but at the same time, everything has changed for me since then. It's a completely different world than I was existing in at the time. At that time, I was recording podcasts in the lab where I worked during downtime. So it was like it's the craziest thing to like now be sitting out here. And I think I was building this the shred shed at the time, and everything's just gone bonkers in ways I never really expected. But how is is the gear world different than like the professional musician world in your perspective? Because it seems very different to me. Like
it is.
It's like a different focus in some ways.
It really is different. I mean, there's a huge departure from the all music. A professional musician is a professional musician. But that being said, in most studios, when I arrive with a pedal board, even when it's like an indie rock kind of studio, more often than not, they have no idea what's on my board or what it is. They're like, "What is that? What does that do?"
Mm-hmm.
I was in a session with in Oregon, actually, in Portland, Oregon, with Chris Crummett. He's the producer out there. He produces a bunch of bands, and got all kind of awards and stuff like that. And
that's cool.
He's got guitars all over the walls, amps all over the place, and I bring my pedal board, and he's like, "What's that? What's that? What's that do? What's that? What's that?" So it's a weird thing. So it's like, there is a huge separation between that type of musician and the gear enthusiast, but then on the same token, you've got guys like Anthony J. Resta, who did produce stuff for Megadeth, Duran Duran, and so on, just like countless artists.
Oh yeah, I follow him on Instagram. I know you're talking. Yeah.
He hit me up and found one of my demos, and now we chat faithfully, and he knows all about all kinds of gear. He's got a huge freaking collection. I mean, that guy's got he's got some cool toys, and he's really into the pedals. So it's I would say that in the professional world, the amount of musicians who are gear enthusiasts is pretty low. I would say it's pretty low.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. I think it's getting bigger though. I think
it is.
I think as the pedal culture kind of expands, because it is its own culture at this point. It's guitar pedals. Yeah, it's so insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I'm part of it. I'm involved in it, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. I've gotten a lot of pleasure out of it and a lot of enjoyment personally from it, as well as professionally. But I mean, it's so crazy that I don't know. This is finally kind of public. I've talked about it a few times, but Reverb's actually doing a documentary about it right now, specifically about guitar pedals and pedal culture. And they're like going around and interviewing various folks from, basically from the gear world, which is such a weird thing to say, because like we use these tools to create music, but yet professional musicians aren't necessarily always involved in the gear world. And I think that's why people like Sarah Lipstadt are so interesting, because she's definitely in both camps, like very solidly. And there's a few others. Nick Reinhardt, I guess, would be one too. There's several. And then yourself, it's kind of funny. You came out of you did not like you left it, but you came from the professional musician world and stumbled into the gear world. And it's whole, the separation is strange, but I think the walls are starting to get broken down a little bit. Like I'm trying to anyway, at least the best I can.
100% right in that, and it's an interesting time for it too. And I mean, it's a really big movement for it. I mean, you got to think about it like this. I was at NAMM a few years ago, and you see these indie rock artists who you love and you idolize, and you see them go up to Chase Bliss, and they are gushing. So this artist that you've loved and followed is gushing over Joel Cordy, and you're like, Joel, Joel, I talk to Joel all the time. Joel's right. Yeah. So it's interesting how like it's kind of becoming its own thing, and you're starting to see playlists that are dedicated to it. You're starting to see a lot of even Instagrammers who have playlists that are kind of more or less relegated to Instagram artists is another thing, and then pedal enthusiasts, gear enthusiasts. So it's becoming a thing. Like now, even in terms of demos, they call us demo artists when it used to just be, you were just some guy making a, tutorial or a review of this thing. But now it in and of itself is becoming an art form. Yeah, it
is. I mean, well, especially when you get to the level that you're doing things. I mean, how could it be considered anything else? At that point, you're not just showing what it does. You're showing what it does in a really unique way from your own perspective that is unlike what anyone else is going to produce. And I think that's really interesting. And I think people are realizing that the pedal up in the right-hand corner, and the guy on the left, which is exactly the kind of video I'm going to make here later today. So I'm not bashing it at all. It's just like, while those are extremely useful, like from my perspective, there's guys that do it way better than I do. I'm never going to be able to make a demo like that as good as Andy Martin ever. Like, he's just a beast of a player. He knows exactly what to do. He's been doing it. I mean, much credit goes to him for like this weird culture, honestly. Like Pro Guitar Shop and him back in the day really changed the game for people. And I really appreciate it when there's somebody, doing things, unique and fresh, and there's this whole crop of demo artists, like you said, that are popping up now. Who are some of your favorites? I should ask you that.
I think I like them all. I mean, it's a weird thing because I like them all for different things, Like, for example, I like Andy and a bunch of pedals when I want to know how a pedal works. When I want to just know how it works, I'll go to either a bunch of pedals or Andy, and then watch. If I'm in the mood for some music, I'll probably listen to Knobs. My happy medium is probably Pedal Zone, because he's kind of in the middle of kind of Andy and in the middle of Knobs. Like, you get like the kind of artistic, artsy, interesting music, but then he kind of goes into it and tells you how it works. I like Spectre demos. I like.
Oh yeah, I just found him. Good stuff. His
stuff is it's so oddly satisfying because it's like he's got a bell
Yes.
or something. Just he's got a box and there's something he's dropping in the box and it's channeling into the pedals. So like I like that for the oddity of it. And then he's got an interesting pacing.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean pretty much all of those guys are great. I mean there's only really a kind of a handful of us now, but they're all really good.
It's a tight knit community. I really like what Anne's doing too. She's doing really good stuff too. I'm terrified that I'm going to mispronounce her last name though.
That's why I didn't.
Is that right?
I don't know.
I hope I didn't butcher that. She's coming on the show. She can correct me. That'll be fine. I really like what she's doing too. It's this weird. It's hard to explain to people that aren't directly involved, if that makes any sense.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I feel like there's some magic happening. That's what I feel like.
There is. It really is. Like, I mean, when you more into that, like, quote unquote professional musician versus the gear enthusiast, which I mean, like we've said earlier, like the line between the two are indelible, and in most instances it bleeds over. But like, when you would try to explain to the quote unquote professional musician what it is, that Anne is doing or what myself is doing, they're just kind of like, what is that? I don't get it, but without realizing that there's a huge movement of, musicians and then just music lovers that are actually, loving those things, taking stock of those things, because we're at this point right now where there has to be some sort of musical revolution, because we're tired. I think everybody's kind of tired of the top 40, top 20 songs that just plays over and over and over again ad nausea. It's just something else, please. So I think that's why we're starting to see the demo guys kind of, people are kind of taking notice to those things. And, it's funny because as by virtue of it, it's like, I'm releasing my own album now that I know that there's enough interest in what it is that I do and who I am, and it's all by virtue of this singular thing, that it's given me the confidence to actually do music for myself. I mean, it's different. It's completely different because I've spent so much of my life playing guitar for other people that when it's time now it's time. I'm afforded the opportunity to play for myself.
When is that coming out?
We wanted to push it out in January, but we've made a business decision to kind of hold off on it, because I've been featured on a few pretty prominent albums that are kind of coming out for some cool artists, and the idea is that their work will generate a significant wave, in that I won't have to come out. Because when you go to push out your music, the worst thing you could do nowadays is just, I mean, it's fine to do it, but like if you're trying to recuperate on your investments of time and monetary investments, the best thing you can do is have like a good strategy and be ready to put some money behind it. It's just, unfortunately,
of
it's
course,
just the way it is. But the benefit to coming out with my things a little bit later is that these other people who I've been featured on as a featured artist, when they go to put their thing out, invest their money into it, that means it's just that much less work that I have to do when it's time for me to push mine. So I'm hoping maybe by March, May, I don't really know. It kind of depends on the numbers. And, I might be releasing a single still in January. But yeah, gonna be doing something. We'll be doing it.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. So keep me posted. I'll definitely share it around as much as not that means a whole lot, but I'll do my best because I like what you do and I'm excited to hear what you have coming.
Oh, yeah, man.
Well, we've reached almost the end of the podcast here, and I've got a couple classic questions to wrap this episode up, if that's cool with you.
Sure, please.
All right. The first one is, what is your favorite Boss pedal?
They have this new pedal out, the synthesizer pedal. It's this blue one. It just came out.
I think at Summer NAMM it came out.
Yeah. So that's probably one of my favorites. But if we're going historical, if we're going back, I would say probably the DD6.
All right. That's a solid pull. DD6 is great. Great pedal. All right. DD6. We'll mark it down. Another one for the DD6. Boss should really sponsor this podcast since I ask that question every time. Never thought of that till just now. Maybe I should stop asking that question.
Yeah. I may know a guy who knows a guy for you.
Oh. We'll have to talk off the air. All right. Last question. Here we go. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Pepperoni. You can't
hard to go wrong.
Classic. They created something special when it was the pepperoni and cheese pizza. Like, it was just, for me, all of the stars align perfectly with a pepperoni pizza. In fact, every time, anytime, pepperoni. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
pepperoni. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, thin crust, thick crust. Gotta have the audience is really gonna grill me if I don't, get a little more detail out of you.
I don't care. That's how.
Just give me the pizza.
Just slide it my way. It does not matter. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. I love pizza. I don't care.
Awesome. I love that. That's so good. Yeah, pepperoni is a magical thing. There's very, very few people. I would venture as far as to say almost nobody who isn't vegan that doesn't like a pepperoni pizza. It's very, very rare to find somebody who doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I've played with the idea of going vegetarian before, and I can give it all up except for pepperoni pizza. That's the one thing that it won't happen. It won't happen. No.
It's too good. It is too good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people find you on the interwebs or otherwise? And this is your chance to say whatever you want to say to wrap this podcast up.
Well, I mean, I can be found in the usual places. So Instagram, Instagram's probably the place where I get more DMs. So if people want to speak to me or ask me questions, Instagram's probably the best place. So just send me a DM and I answer all questions about gear or anything else. Or a lot of people send me their songs and ask me to play guitar on them or sing on them. So usually Instagram's the best place. So I can be found there at I think it's Devon Whitaker. Whitaker is Whitaker. So DEVON BLUE WHITAKER. And my Instagram channel where I post all my demos and things of that nature, that's under Devon Whitaker as well.
All right. Sounds good. Check him out, guys. If you haven't seen his demos, fix that immediately, and and you'll be happy that you did. All right. For Devon, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. There we go. We can put a fork in that one. It's officially done. Yes, it is. Make sure you slide over and check out his YouTube videos if you haven't done that already. I know I've said that like 400 times on this episode, but seriously, I can't reiterate it enough. They're so cool to me. I love them. I love them to death. They're so good. And let's see, what else do we got? Oh yeah, this is dropping just before Christmas, so Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and all that jazz for everybody. I hope you're just going to have the best time and you're going to get all of the pedals that you asked for. I'm sure you asked for just a ton of pedals. I can only imagine that's what all the listeners of this show do. But anyway, if you need more of this delicious, delicious content, we slid over to Patreon and did some more. So if that's your thing, you can go to patreon.com/tonemob, and there's new episodes there published alongside of the regular episodes every week. So sometimes they're extended interviews, sometimes it's demos, like audio demos, sometimes it's me and Justin Porter just hanging out in the shred shed and talking about gear and nonsense. Either way, there is more content over there for you every week, and that starts at just $5 a month if that is your thing. And thank you to everyone who is already supporting over there. I really, really appreciate that. All right, I think that's enough nonsense for me. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday and everybody's great, and I will talk to you next week, coming at you with a fresh one. All right, later. One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.